option, because I think more and more what me and Tom and Gloria are talking about, the leaders are talking about, is that there is the entitlement thing is special diet, and there is a special diet clause, and one of them's for $45 extra a month, which is what Gloria gets, and then there's a larger one for $200. And we're not quite clear on why the heck Gloria doesn't get the $200 or why, and then we're kind of saying
anytime that is, you can drive a truck through that. I mean, that's
right.
Anytime it's a subjectively determined thing, and even if there are doctors, I mean, most doctors understand that people are going to be healthier if they have a better diet.
How do you, and then just organizing the MBs just going?
Well, I mean, there are, you first find doctors who are friendly to the issues that you're talking about, and then you network with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes
so then we got folks down at the
sometimes with nurses, sometimes with public health people, anybody who can make a recommendation that helps spread the responsibility here. I mean, there used to be there are still committees in the United States, and I can't believe they don't have Canadian counterparts, you know, doctors for human rights, or, you know,
yeah, there's this thing called Vancouver Coastal Health.
In Chicago that had to do with doctors. And, you know, you often get doctors who are voluntary docs at big demonstrations. Unions would know who they are, or, you know.
And then if you got, let's say you got that, what happened in Ontario is they did the exact same thing. They did a very, very public campaign, everyone got it, and the government just stopped the program, so now you can't even get the special diets. And in the end it kind of, I guess that's just part of what might happen.
Well, in this situation, you'd have to ask yourself, in terms of the politics of BC, what is the chance of an incoming provincial government, such as I understand it might be possible next spring, taking a draconian step to then reduce
right.
benefits.
Right.
This is not there, this is here.
Right.
And if you're building this campaign now over the next couple of months, you know, but I mean,
little, it would be little. They would look, they wouldn't be able to do that.
I don't think, I mean, if there's enough political pressure, you can't do it. I mean,
right.
Or you get something as opposed to nothing. I mean, the only place you get stuck is if you just get, I mean, the Massachusetts case was exactly what you're talking about. They said, okay, no more special needs.
Mm-hmm.
We'll turn off the program. They didn't say we're going to grandfather you in. Everybody who's in so far, you get to keep it. All the new people who are exactly in the same situation don't. I mean, we could have gone to court on that, but they just said, okay, we're going to change the whole benefit so it's fair, everybody gets more money. Well, you know, it's not what we wanted, but you can settle a welfare-based or disability-based campaign getting more money for everybody. That's not terrible.
No.
No, I mean, so Ontario, obviously, I don't understand the campaign if they got just nothing.
Yeah, they just nothing. It was the Liberals, they just got nothing.
But who was moving that campaign?
The Ontario Coalition Against Poverty. And that would have been
that was an advocacy campaign.
No, they had so like in Regent Park or downtown in Toronto, they would have had folks join on. I think what it was a lot more. I don't know how many folks they actually got on. I think the numbers would pale compared to some of the stuff that was going on in Massachusetts back in the day. But there was still like a lot. But I think what they were able to do is they were able to really publicize it in an advocacy kind of way. And they had a leader who was, you know, like the organizer was kind of the leader of it. And they kind of, there was some things,
well,
there was a lot different.
Obviously politics can be different, and you know, I'm not saying that there weren't states in the United States during that period that didn't end any kind of notion of special needs. I mean, the most ridiculous, I've told this story in training organizers for decades now, but the wildest situation was in Newark, New Jersey. And they had a similar campaign where I forget what specific thing they were trying to get, that had to do with a special benefit, and they'd taken a whole bunch of people into Newark, the Newark Welfare Center, and they were in there and they were bargaining, and the welfare department finally broke and came out and said, okay, you know, we're gonna, whatever the issue was, we're gonna give you, you know, school clothing for children, whatever, I don't think that was the issue, but whatever it was. So they then, the leaders, the welfare rights leaders in Newark, and they, you know, caucused to see if they were going to take that deal or not. Was that going to be enough to, you know, leave the office, call it a victory? And, well, they knew that the big demand for welfare rights was $5,500 to fight adequate income, so they looked at the situation and said, okay, the welfare department here in New Jersey has agreed to give us this, so that's not enough. We're going to go back. We're going to say we reject that victory about school clothing for children. We aren't going to leave until we get $5,500. We get adequate income right today at this action. Well, of course, they all were arrested and they didn't get school clothing. And I've always thought that's something that is organizing me to think about that. You know, the example of the leaders in Newark. You know, there they were, they had a bird in one hand and then they let it bite the other hand. I mean they might have been able to get, you know, a toque with that school clothing, or, you know, maybe a couple of pair of boots for the kids or whatever, but you weren't going to go from winning school clothing to $5,500 to every family of four. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the ins and outs of all these things, and you'd have to be careful, but right now, and you also have to use it to build organization, and that's, you know, what clearly we were able to do in Massachusetts, because you set the campaign up so that you could only get the forms. These forms were gold, you know, a special piece of paper. You know, you only could get them from welfare rights. It had the welfare rights, you know, link on them, just like the ACORN would be on them. And you had to come to the meeting. You had to be a member.
And then the forms would say, do you have a sofa? Do you have winter boots? Do you have this? And everyone would say,
you know, I'm a recipient of welfare, and you know, I don't have the following things, and then you would check them off. If you had some, yeah, you know, they had lines, and you would just check that.
And you would take the, and then staff.
You would have to, you know, you'd have to be at the meeting. Usually, we went right from the meeting to the action. So you had to show up to the meeting, fill out the form, become a member, and then we would try to put that meeting as close as we could to the welfare office, and then we would march to the welfare office. It was all one, I mean, if they were on welfare, they weren't working.
Yeah.
So once we had them, they were ours, right into the office, demanding, you know, hooting and hollering, carrying on. That's why there were 477 arrests that year. It was, you know, sometimes they didn't like you hooting and hollering, going in, sitting on their desk, you know, bringing the children in. It was wild and crazy stuff. It was the 60s, you know. And sometimes we'd win. And sometimes, like in Newark, they'd almost win.
Well, I think that leaves us, you know, like.
But it's a way, I mean, my point is not, you know, this is a perfect way to do it. It's this is a way of thinking about how you do benefit level campaigns. I mean, it's not easy to just enter a pleading saying raise benefits from 600 to 700, raise benefits from 900 to 1,000.
Yeah.
There's no, and you know, there's neoliberalism out there. This is not the way the world works now. You know, it's all about having to, you know, ratchet your benefits down unless you're living in Korea. And it turns out that's maybe even what they were doing there.
So any of these kind of.
But putting pressure on, that's always a winner.
Chris is here. Well, great. I think like that leaves, you know, I think like if we could, the one main point I get out of it is reading the welfare manual.
Yeah.
So, these are kind of things I'm like.
Yeah, now, there's reading it incorrectly like I did, as I've now admitted, but at least I read it, you know. I sat there and went through the, you know, 200 or 300 pages, because what you're looking for is organizing handles. You're looking for any discretionary language there that seems to open up the opportunity. And I've had to read 1 million manuals for 1 million government programs looking for organizing handles. You're looking for something you can then take, some little discretionary item, some little benefit that they say they might provide or, you know, could provide, to then raise that up into a major campaign. So when you're in benefit level campaigns, that's the lifeblood, is those manuals. I know something about some manuals.
When they say we've capped it, and then we can come back and say no under, if this must be the case. I don't know if we have as many freedoms as you all do down in the United States around
I wouldn't want to comment on that. I wouldn't want to comment because Canada is a great country. I don't get involved in any kind of U.S. versus Canadian kind of comparisons.
But I wonder about that because they were quite adamant, and I didn't quite know what to say after that. Once they said they were capping it, and we said capping it, that's bullshit. That's basically what we're coming back at them with. We weren't coming back at them with. We were like, that's morally wrong. This is reprehensible.
Delete. You know, it's like an online petition. Delete. Woo! They said it was bullshit. Well, delete.
Yeah. So, and we didn't quite know how to get it to them. I guess you would go down there and be like, we're demanding this now, but then you had some equal access. So you were the.
And once they've capped it. You actually, if they were actually grandfathering or red circling, you know, as a language used in the U.S., anybody who previously gotten the benefit, just saying no new people can get it, that's probably a pretty good deal to run that. I mean, the problem is on the front end is how you establish. I mean, are there any poverty lawyers in Canada here?
Sure.
So that you'd want to talk to them about this equality clause and whether or not you can use that to get standardized benefits between people in the same circumstance under the same level of provincial regulations. Because why they didn't sue immediately then, I don't know. I mean, usually it would mean an Ontario solution, which is you eliminate the entire program.
Right.
Okay. So it could be that everybody just sort of zipped up and didn't want to say anything, because at least some people are still getting it, even though new people can't.
Or no one, or no one knew to say anything. Because when that happened, I was like, I don't know what, that's kind of what my thought was. I was kind of like, well, this is good because all of our people who are on the waiting list did get this.
Yeah, that's great.
That was great. But it was hard to frame it as a victory because we wanted it for everyone all the time.
Yeah, and the reason nobody probably sued on it is they didn't want to lose it for everybody who was still getting it. So, I mean, practically,
right,
you'd have to find somebody in that circumstance who is now on the, once they gotten benefits for the waiting list, was sort of next in line and says, hey, I've got a beef, how come I didn't get it too, because I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and there wasn't a real incentive to look if all of a sudden you were going to throw the whole program out the back window. So that, I mean, practically speaking, everybody probably just zipped it up and said, okay, you know, that's probably the best we can get here. It could have been like Ontario and just, or you know, there is no special. 1970, I went down to Arkansas, special needs program gone. There is no special needs program. I mean, I left before the campaign was over, but they lost that. So they got their little flat grant, no special needs, no discretion in the system. It's a harder, you know, the welfare system is a harder world now. So mainly they say, you know, if you want special needs, go talk to so-and-so social service group, or go talk to this, you know, Joe Blow church, or become a Mormon, or whatever you need. So, but if you still have a system where they have discretion, you're looking for discretion, because where there's discretion in any state system, any provincial system, there's going to be abuse, and there's going to be decisions that have been made that benefit some people and don't benefit others. And those are the handles, the organizing handles on campaigns.
Yeah, I think that goes on a lot at the offices here. Like, a lot of people don't know what they're entitled to at all. A lot of people are getting things because they know, and then you talk to other people and they have no idea what they're eligible for.
That's the whole thing, the bubble we burst on the rights-based campaign. That's the whole, welfare rights was all about that. Now, what we did, and what, you know, you'll be inundated with individual pleadings and cases unless you create a real membership-based grievance system where people are trained in what the manual says. This is what we used to do. I mean, it's in the organizing model, or we've never made a big deal with ACORN, but coming out of welfare rights, we trained welfare recipients to be essentially jailhouse lawyers in the welfare system. So they knew the manual code. They knew it better than any organizers. And so we would plant them in the welfare centers, and they would sign up people in the centers. We actually won the right to have offices in the centers, or, you know, not offices, but a table, a flyer, somebody to sit there. I'll go through how you win that in a second, but, or they would just wander through, or they'd be out front or whatever. And they, you know, hear John yelling back and forth with a social worker, they'd sneak them off to the bathroom, they'd go in as their advocate. And you can definitely have an advocate under your system eventually as well. So all of a sudden, that's an ACORN member, in that case a welfare rights member, who's your advocate, going through chapter and verse, making sure you know the rights, making sure you're not taken advantage of by some little 22-year-old social worker. I mean, the anger from recipients is palpable.
Oh yeah.
Because here you're looking at some child who's determining what you and your children, you and your family can do just based on, you know, being on the job for 6 months and thinking they know the manual, what they can or can't do.
So how did you win to get the tables? How did we win to get the tables in the office?
Okay, so in the concept here, just like equal protection or the equality clause, is public forum, and that's a concept in law. What establishes that something is a public forum as opposed to private space. In a public forum, when you have state involved, you know, provincial authority, I mean state in the big terms of government, is a public forum starts to be created any time that various interests that are not governmental interests are allowed to operate within space. So we actually run this both in hospitals and welfare programs. Put that up there. So, for example, if there would be a newspaper box selling in a welfare office, selling copies of the Vancouver Sun, that all of a sudden puts commercial interest in public space. That all of a sudden changes it into a public forum as opposed to a private space.
I missed that because there's companies inside there or something?
You know, if we could establish if they were selling, if they allowed newspapers to put newspaper boxes in a waiting room in a hospital or a waiting room in the welfare office, that would be part of the evidence. If they allowed people to sell stuff on the bulletin board, if they allowed people to come in and move lunches to folks. Anything that establishes this is a public forum, because once it's a public forum, we have the right to set up there. We won a big case at the Parkham Hospital District in Dallas, which is the lead case in the whole United States in 1982 or 83 or whatever, just on the basis of these, a federal court decision. That we would go in, we would set up a table, start doing business, they would kick us out, and we would sue. We'd go to the commissioner's office, we'd yell and carry, because all we wanted was the ability to operate in that space so that we could operate a grievance system, sign up members, advocate for them to get their full health benefits. Part of the health side of it was in the U.S. system. If hospitals were built using federal money, what was called Hill-Burton money, they had to provide some free care. So if they tried to charge you for some stuff, and you should have been getting free care because you were broke, then we signed people up there. Welfare system, we won access to welfare systems in New York, Massachusetts, on a federal basis. So wherever you had the troops, we could go in there, set up, and you couldn't smoke and drink, but you could definitely sign up some members, and anytime somebody had a problem, you had your little welfare rights button on, the little ACORN button, and you could do business. So that's the that legally that's a concept of public forum in the U.S. I don't know what it's called here, but once again, you can't once you have a confluence of commercial and governmental interest, you've changed it so that anybody with a similar interest should have a right to that property. You can't all of a sudden say, you know, and a lot of provincial authorities, they allow insurance companies to come in.
That's what I was thinking. Or at the welfare office, they'd have, say, you'd think at the job banks and stuff like that, they have job banks in the middle, and then people would be like, I think they just tell people to go to temp agencies and stuff.
Yeah, anytime you allow a private company in, as a nonprofit, we have a way to, you know, squeeze our ass in there too.
And the other,
we won the right to, just on that temp one, we won the right to be in unemployment offices everywhere in Arkansas on the campaign in 19, you know, Unemployed Workers Organizing Committee in 1972, 71. Exactly right. Because they couldn't deny us. But all these places are sloppy. They allow, you know, roach coaches in to sell lunches, and, you know, people to come in and sell pies, and, you know, there's a vending machine for Cokes, and, you know, special diets. Hell, there's something selling potato chips and all kinds of grab your heart and hope you die stuff. But whenever you allow that, you're opening the door for people like us. We're a nonprofit, we're not commercially based. Say, hey, we want to be able to set up here and be here every day, and we'll man the station, make sure.
And then you guys would have your trained leaders in there too.
Members, yeah. I mean, you got, you know, that's what I was talking about yesterday. I mean, the leader there was sort of like a jailhouse lawyer on tenant issues. Mm-hmm. Well, you take that skill, which is not necessarily a critical leadership skill, but it is a critical skill in terms of getting people benefits. And you don't, you know, yes, we could all become experts in the welfare manual, but the truth is we've got lots of different programs we have to understand. So, you know, get somebody, there's nobody who understands welfare better than somebody who's on welfare.
Which is what we're finding with Tom, and then Tom and Lori, and then Tom's kind of leading up, getting this peer-to-peer, and we have these workshop things going off, and then going off of what Zoe's got.
Well, peer-to-peer is a fancy way of talking about a grievance program. I mean, obviously we took it from the way a grievance system works in labor, and the notion of seeing our members as stewards. And none of this is, you know, this wasn't like some brilliant thing I was inventing. This was just stealing it from some other great organization that used to work back in the 60s, and of course it doesn't work now in the second decade of the 21st century, but used to be being a steward, being you know, somebody who's a grievance handler mattered. Well, we would train people to do that. And they become, you know, your ACORN steward, so to speak, helping people get on disability, helping people get on welfare, navigate the system. And that's what you want to call peer-to-peer, or, you know. Yeah,
it's just something I threw out. It's really just something I threw on a grant because it sounded good, and I thought there was some money words there.
I'm sure peer-to-peer is worth a lot more than, you know, ACORN steward at welfare office. You know, I think one of them's worth, you know, probably a slap in the face, and the other might be worth a couple of grand to you, Johnny boy. So yeah, I'd go with that peer-to-peer thing all day.
Yes.
But the point is, you know, this is something your leaders can really, your members can really do, and you want them to do it. You don't want to have to do it.
Yeah.
Then you're out there, you know, you're lost in the weeds. I mean, that's why this whole thing about getting, you know, people to pitch in to pay for their taxes and all that. There's a lot of people can do that. Those don't have to be staff intensive. You only have disorganizing staff. You need to be out there winning, you know, for the masses. Putting together, you know, entitlement campaigns, putting together special needs forms, putting together, you know, getting the door. That's our job, not helping somebody get on welfare.
Great.
But I gotta believe that anybody who needs to, you know, that you can push them to pay for wheelchairs and walkers and
because Candy got money. Candy Canada got money for a scooter. Totally got money for a scooter.
Scooters are expensive.
Right. She got a few grand.
Scooters are big time.
Right. Right. And then, and there's other members
you
who are.
See that issue. You can either give me a bus pass or a scooter. You can win a lot of bus passes there, a lot of transportation subsidies as opposed to buying people scooters.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
And what establishes that you're eligible for a scooter?
My guess is that you got bad hips, and your doctor writes you a note saying I got bad hips and a scooter.
I think it's probably somewhere on the doctor, because almost, you know, there's almost nobody out there who's that good at walking.
Yeah, I'm
You could
surprised
have
to hear people again.
you could have a fleet of thousands of people on scooters out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you think every one of our members who have scooters are on disability, where did they get the $4,000 to buy a scooter? They don't have $4,000, just gave it money. So,
There's some days on, you know, my old football knee, I could use a scooter, you know? Start just, you know, dragging that leg in the office when you come.
so I think,
The benefits could be one.
can you see the time on the computer?
I can.
Wait, has anybody got the time?
It's 1:15.
1:15.
Oh, we got a little bit of time.
What else
So,
we want to talk about? That was fun.
well, that was good. I think, like, to recap, like, were there thoughts, like, you guys moving forward? I think and Jill in Ottawa, Jill O'Reilly, our great organizer in Ottawa, is moving forward. And I think with trying to, I just saw this on those faxes that I see from Jill. It's one of the same fax thing, but around how stuff around special diet and figuring out how we would do that and being able to get forms. I think the main thing I liked from what Wade was saying is just how, like, well, for one thing, how the members are doing the training and how we would need to know basics, but I think the main thing is, like, getting Tom to teach all the members how to do this kind of stuff, which means we need to be getting members involved.
I mean, somebody needs to read the manual.
Well, we'll read the manual. We're reading the manual,
Because,
but it's not like
as an organizer reading the manual at times a handle. So.
yeah. I get that,
Yeah.
but we're not going to be the ones going out there
No,
being the
I don't think you
advocates
wanna
for
do
this.
that, no.
That was my point. And then the other part was around what the welfare rights organization did around how they weren't, like, they are at the doors saying, hey, you don't have a couch, what the heck's going on? Oh, you don't have that, we'll come down to the ACORN office. And it's not like you're giving them,
Yeah.
right, you're
Yeah,
not
I'd
giving
show
them
them the
fly.
form. The
Yeah.
form would have a 2-inch letters across it sample.
Yeah.
I'd show them the form. Oh yeah, they could look at the form. I'd sometimes even give them a sample form.
Yeah.
But it'd be a sample.
Yeah, that's.
But I've often, you've heard me tell the story, I'm sure, of the way, when I was first breaking in as an organizer, sometimes how I'd get them the doors. I'd have all these forms and papers on the clipboard. I'd be at the door and they'd come to the door. I'd just let it all drop on the floor and they'd, then they'd open the door and help me pick it up, and then I'm in the house, and then where's your second chair? Where's your couch? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Well, then you're on your way. Just get your body in there.
Well, I like that. I think Wade probably teaches a lot about getting in the door. Dropping all your papers.
You can
and
be
having
Joe
this
Cool,
stuff
or you can
throughout.
get in the door, And I'm just like, oh God, there's paperwork everywhere. I'm sorry about that.
Throw your pencil in there.
We were doing a campaign, 88, Jesse Jackson was the president, and I had the kids along, so we had this caravan going through a number of southern states trying to get turnout, and this is the best way ever, because we come to this one house, and it's got a screen door. My daughter is with me, and Maud Hurd is the president of ACORN at that time. She wasn't president at that time, she became president later. And we're knocking on the door, and the screen door is half broken. And while we're knocking on the door outside, Danae just walked on in. And she said, "We're here for Jesse Jackson." And they invited us all in. Just walked right in. She was just a baby girl, you know. She was like, I don't know, 6 or 7, 5, I don't know. Just walked right in, just short enough. She just walked right in. Maud and hers, we just caught up with her. And, there's always some way to do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think the large part is around, it gets us back to around membership, and that we're not giving stuff, away, because I think that's a bit of the problem, and it's going to be a bit of a problem getting, or it's going to be some leadership work we need to do with the leaders, explaining that to them about how, it's the other large problem we have with our, some people and some of our leaders in the disability group, is that, well, we're hurting so bad, you know what I mean, we don't have the money to pay dues, and this kind of stuff.
Well, you either want to win or you don't.
Right.
I mean, you only win if we can put together a significant enough base that puts real pressure on the province. And if people people who just wanna have a pity party about it, that's not much pressure. That's
Right.
really a, damn, we didn't win.
Right.
There's gotta be some anger about it. This has gotta be a,
The other thing around,
adapt, you know, kinda.
if we're doing this, the stuff around the special diet, and maybe I'm certain there are some other handles in there that might work better than this. But off the top of my head, this is the one that I think of, that we timing it right. Because I think this government, the government we have now in the next 7 months, if we were able to ramp this up in the next 7 months, there's a chance that they would cancel the program before the election happened, and then the NDP would come in and the issue would kind of, the timing that right would be smart. Because I think this government would just cancel the program if we started making a calamity out of it.
Which program does? The special?
If everyone just started getting an extra $100 on their check, like everyone who's an ACORN member, and we were able to get a lot of folks involved.
It takes them a while to figure out, though. I mean, I don't know how many thousands of people would have to start getting the benefits for them to start noticing.
So you think it would take a while?
I don't know. I mean, it's a big government.
What they did in Ontario, I remember me and James always thinking when I was an organizer in a Toronto thing and when this was going on, is that they were really public about it. It was like really, really public, very public campaign, and I think that the organizers were advocating and saying more people have to do it. And their way to reach out to people wasn't door to door, going to neighborhoods, talking to people. Well, it was much more through the media. So I think it almost, because the amount of money they were talking about, it couldn't have been. It was not bad. But for the whole government of Ontario, we're not talking about a the amount of money for the government.
It's also worth trying to reach out to whoever is the union that represents the workers who are handling needs assessments.
Which is the GEU. So we've reached out.
Oh, is it?
So the GEU runs all these offices. And this is whenever I reach out to the GEU, the BCGU, our allies, they're always like, we'll go easy on, they have troubles with it too, because I don't know how engaged they're, do you know what I mean? They've always had trouble. Whenever I reach out to them, I almost pull away from them a little bit, because if anything, if they showed up at the meeting, they would just tell us not to do it, right? They would tell us not to do the actions, because we're yelling at their members, and they have trouble with that. Because you're actually doing actions on our members, and our members are they're underpaid, and they're working hard, and, that's what we've heard from them. And I've reached out to one of Mayor, and I have to do it again, a little harder, to actually be able to have a sit-down powwow with someone who actually matters there. There's one woman who was like, I work with this, trying to raise, because the union's saying that they're trying to raise disability rates, and they're trying to do that, But I just don't know how engaged their membership is at the office.
Well, it's an interesting problem. Certainly where you have, friendly allies who are social workers, you can find more examples of discretion that they've acted on themselves and gotten approved, which
So you're talking about sitting down with a leader from there and reaching out to them.
Sitting down with somebody who does
Yeah.
these, face-to-face and makes the decisions of the firing line. So, we often were able to break some specific social workers in an office, so we were getting information for them about how they were allowed to use discretion and what they had approved in certain situations. So that actually helped us along with some of the, stories we'd hear from recipients themselves about, what they'd gotten because a fire happened and what the welfare paid for. So maybe it's individuals who could be more helpful than the institution. But yeah, I mean, it's not, if BCGU is uncomfortable, it's not going to be a happy time for them. I mean, because you are talking about pressure.
Yeah.
And pressure will be on benefits, not on wages. I mean, it's not personal for them, but it is part of what drives these campaigns is a rage that recipients feel about how they are dealt with by the system and the people that are the face of the system. So don't ever be confused that somehow this is a friendly proceeding. I mean, the biggest problem we would have in demonstrations was making sure that some of the ladies didn't catch some social workers in the bathroom. And it happened. I mean, I'd have to assign an organizer to police the women's bathroom, because there would be some little social workers who would get their ass whipped in some of these cases. Because, I mean, the anger about, you know, this is people trying to protect their children, they can't get the benefits, they can't get what they need, they can't get on, whatever, and then they're dealing with some, you know, youngster who they think is just arbitrarily denying them benefits, and they got nothing to lose. These are desperate people. But that all, you know, frankly, we would do everything we could to stop it. That's not, you know,
That's not helpful, yeah.
tactically helpful. But at the same time, I mean, the rage was palpable, and we were winning based on the rage. I mean, they understood, you know, when they denied us winter coats in Springfield on October 15th, it then broke into, you know, I was arrested for inciting the riot. It broke into, you know, 3 days of curfews, and, you know, it was a riot. I mean, it was serious. The whole community erupted around what was happening to welfare recipients and why they couldn't get winter coats. I mean, people weren't happy. These are serious things. This is not, you know, social work, you know, 101. This is real life organizing where you need the benefits to live and survive. And that puts pressure on the province to have to deliver something. It means it's not just a matter of, okay, we just say we won't provide welfare. F you. What? I mean, what kind of eruption do you have in the community when that happens? Now, these were the 60s, so people were afraid of riots. You know, now nobody thinks, you know, riots are possible. Not most students or somebody. You don't necessarily want people to you know, behave any differently than what their anger instructs about these kinds of programs. And the programs are so miserly now. I mean, you can't really speak of these benefits as being reasonable for people to live on. So, you know, people have a right to be angry about it.
Well, that was the headline on the front page of the Burnaby paper, was welfare activists, quote, "We're angry." That's the quote from Gloria. We're angry.
Oh, well. So if they couldn't figure it out, then you tell them about it. That's me angry. Okay, if you couldn't tell. Okay.